Hello YouTube, it's Ian here with Hobbies and Man once again, and today we're going to be doing another TV show review slash anime review. Today we're going to be looking at The Legend of Vox Machina now. This is not an anime, but it's in the same kind of vibe, same ballpark. The directors here, or at least the people that are in charge of creating it, because I think this was made through independent sources and then bought up by Amazon. So the people in charge were Kurt Pronosky, I think. Curtis Pronosky, something like that. And Critical Role, of course. This is based on their D&D campaign. And the studio, like I said, it seems to be independently made by Critical Role and then eventually picked up by Amazon, and they even picked it up for season 2. And I think they're steamrolling, or like they're using the money. Amazon is providing the money to finish the next season, and hopefully we get more seasons after that because it's a great story. I really enjoyed it. The demographic is definitely adult. There's a lot of adult jokes and stuff. I think the actual rating on the TV show is TV 16 plus, but I'm not exactly sure. I would definitely just say adult to be safe. And the genres here are fantasy, epic, and of course D&D. Technically, I guess D&D is not a specific genre. It would be kind of like a medium slash subgenre, but basically this is a D&D campaign turned into a TV show, so that's pretty interesting. Now, like I said, this doesn't have an adaptation, but however, this is an adaptation of the original Critical Role campaign, and there's also spin-off comic books, I think, which are kind of interesting, I guess. I tried to look into them because I really liked the show. Realized it wasn't really exactly what I was looking for, so I just stopped looking into it, and so I don't really know too much about them. And the premise here is that basically there's this group of adventurers. They're called Vox Machina, which I'm not sure why they're called that. And Scanlan, one of the characters, almost tried to explain it, but then everyone was like, we don't care, and then they moved on. But they get contracted by the ruler of Amon, I think is the name of the place, and they get caught up in a bunch of shenanigans as they battle against different groups of evil people. The first thing that they beat is a dragon. That's kind of the first story arc, more or less. So the plotline here is actually really great. I really enjoyed it. It was super fantasy oriented. It was great, and dissimilar or different from a normal D&D campaign. There wasn't a bunch of side tangents and stuff like that. Post watching this, I've been watching a lot of other D&D campaigns online. I've been watching Rustage's Isekai D&D with Daniel Green, which is really fun. And also started watching his One Piece campaign, which is also pretty good. And I have seen Critical Role before, although didn't watch the Vox Machina stuff, or at least I don't remember if I did. I can't remember which part of Critical Role I was watching, but it wasn't the same thing, or at least I don't think it was. And so it doesn't have any of those side tangents, any of these like weird situations that are pretty funny and pretty enjoyable, but they kind of go off. It's very much only the main focus, only the story, and go through the story as well as you can. So we get the introduction to the team where they're in a tavern and they get busy and they start fighting people. Then we get the first mission, which is to fight a dragon that is terrorizing the people of different towns across the land that composes the Amon Kingdom, or the Kingdom of Amon, I think. And then they finish that. They have the resolution for that part of the story. And then we move on to the next part of the story with a dinner with the ruler where they're all invited. And it turns out that there's actually new villains around in this dinner. And then we get a bunch of backstory for a lot of characters, specifically Percy. Then a lot of preparation time after a big battle. Then they go on an adventure, and then the story finishes off with the big battle versus these vampire creatures. And then a rebellion leads into a slight resolution, which will then lead into the next season. So really good stuff. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. I really loved the story. I really found it to be very compelling, very enjoyable, and it just had enough of that weird, like, real people trying to play act as fantasy people, but also enough seriousness of the fantasy world itself that it made it really compelling and really interesting to watch. So in terms of characters, we have Keyleth, who is some sort of druid, like native forest elf person. I'm not sure. I'm not really big on knowing any D&D lore, but I think she's some sort of druid character. We have Scanlan, who's a gnome, who is also a bard, and he has a little lyre lute thing that he plays, and he has this weird hand that pops up with his magic. We have Vex and Vax, who are both half elves. We have Pike, who is also another gnome, and I think she's a paladin, or some sort of monk, maybe. She uses armor and god powers, so I think she is a paladin. And then we have Grog, who's some sort of orc barbarian character. Percy, who is a ex-nobleman, and he is basically like the sharpshooter of the team. He has these guns that are called pepper boxes, if I remember correctly. And then we have a bunch of bad guys and a general council of elders, which are just a group of different raced people that are all acting together for the good of this country that they're in. And the bad guys are a coalition of dragons, some vampire people trying to get some old god resurrected, and I think there's something else. There's another group that was bad, but I can't remember what they were or who they were, so it doesn't matter. The bad guys are just dragons or vampires, more or less. In terms of world building, we only really get the necessary stuff for the story, so we don't really take time to develop everything behind the scenes. It's not necessary because everything is being said as it comes up, right? So we know more or less where the main kingdom is. We know that to one side there is these villages that were being harassed by the dragon, and we know that in the other direction there's this other city where Percy comes from that had a giant sun tree, and where they had special magic crystal ore. And that's basically all that you need to know. Very similar to light novels, this is more or less based on generic RPG, D&D type things. So even though you don't really have to know too much, if you want to, you can kind of get into the nitty gritty by kind of going into the D&D lore. But I didn't find it necessary. I didn't think it's, it might not even be enjoyable to do that, because if this is a self-made campaign by Matt Mercer, it might not actually follow the generic D&D rules for a lot of things, or it might actually do so, and it doesn't really matter, right? So, yeah, in terms of the art style or the animation here, I thought it was great. It definitely has an anime-esque feel, but it is a more Western style design to a lot of the characters, and it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very fluid. It had very much like a very enjoyable kind of style to it. I couldn't really notice any like very harshly noticeable CGI elements to it. Everything looked more or less in the same style, even if some things might have been CGI. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not too well versed in the different words that you have to use to describe animation, but I didn't really have any moments where I felt like it wasn't matching itself in terms of the style. Overall, it was great. It was really enjoyable. I liked it a lot. And in terms of fan service or sexual content, there was a little bit of that at the beginning of the story, and then it moves on. There's a lot of innuendo, a lot of adult jokes, so be aware of that. If you're someone that's not into that, or you're squeamish, or you're trying to watch it with your kids, be aware. It definitely has some of that content, and it might lead to some uncomfortable conversations with children if you let them watch it, so there you go. But I, as an adult, found it to be pretty funny. Most of the time, it was just ridiculous situations that involved some elements of adult sexual humor. And overall, I thought it was enjoyable the few times that it kind of was there. So, yeah. In terms of a rating, this is a 4 out of 5. I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was really fun. And I would watch it again. And I'm definitely going to watch the second season. But I feel like the second half of the story was a little bit less compelling than the first. And I'm not sure why. However, I did notice that the funny bits, the comedy elements, were a lot more prevalent in the first half of the story than the second half. And that might have led to me enjoying it a little bit less, because it got a little too serious for itself. And then it kind of was like a big downer compared to the first half of the season. So it might have been that, I'm not sure, but I didn't really enjoy it enough to give it a 5 out of 5. Even though I generally did enjoy it very much. So And that's all I have to say about Legend of Vox Machina. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know what you thought. And thank you guys very much for watching. See you guys later.